Hello, everybody. Ed McIntyre here, all things Leeds. Welcome to a live match preview for Leeds United's penultimate game of the season, which is away at Derby County, kicking off at 2 p.m. today. We are live on YouTube and Facebook right now, so get all of your comments in. If you are joining, thank you very much for joining. If you're enjoying, make sure to give the video a like, share it around as well. And if you're feeling generous and you're watching on YouTube, get your super chats in as well. That'll be very much appreciated. I am not alone, though. Looking ahead to today's game, joining me from the Rams Review podcast is Corey, and it is also Jason. Hello, guys.
Ed, how you doing?
I am very well. How are you guys doing?
Yeah. Go on, Jason.
Corey. No, you go.
Yeah, so for me, it's 6 a.m., so I'm doing brilliant.
6 a.m. Why? Where are you, Corey?
About 30 miles south of Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. Brilliant. And Jason, it's 11 a.m. for us, I'm guessing.
It is. Yeah. I'm in Derby, so just outside Derby. So a little bit later on for us.
If fans were allowed in the game today, would you guys be going?
I certainly would. I've got a season ticket. Obviously, Corey being that many miles away doesn't get to every game. I know he does come over, don't you, Corey?
Yeah, I do. I come over about once a year, Ed, to once or twice a year to watch a couple games. You basically build my vacation around watching Derby, which sometimes isn't necessarily a positive or feel like a vacation, you know? So, yeah, but I normally come in the fall. Would I have been there at Leeds? Probably not, but I definitely would have been watching it on TV, which I'll be doing here in a few hours. So, still looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Leeds, of course, have been crowned champions of the championship this season after this week's results. They've gone our way incredibly. So, no one can reach Leeds United's 87-point total, which is the highest amount of points Leeds have reached in a single season. It's been a very mad weekend indeed. But Derby, after yesterday's results, are 12th on 61 points, 9 points from the top six. So, Derby cannot make the playoffs. So, Corey, I'll go to you first. How would you sum up Derby's season?
I think it's a bit of a season in two halves. I think for us as fans, in a way, I think it started with a bit of disappointment because of the departure and the nature of the way Frank Lampard left, the short preseason, the kind of bundled preseason that we had in Florida. But I think the coaching staff and the players have kind of grown on me. And I think a lot of the fan base as the season's progressed, and we realized that this wasn't like a Bielsa evolution that you guys have had this season. This was a complete revolution. We've had to basically change everything. The season's been okay for everything that we've had to go through in terms of off the field matters, which I'm sure very well documented, Ed. I'm sure you're very well aware of them. Yeah. Jason and myself have discussed this on the podcast several times, that to be mentioning the playoffs with 3 games to go, pretty cool for the season that we've had. Because I don't think based off of what you've read that and everything that's gone on that we should have been in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were struggling at the start of the season, but Wayne Rooney came along, and Jason. What are your thoughts on Wayne Rooney? What were your thoughts when it was initially announced that he was going to sign? What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, Wayne Rooney at 21, Wayne Rooney at 36 or whatever he is, he's still Wayne Rooney. The pull of the anticipation was there. Obviously, we weren't quite sure what he was going to bring to the table. I think anybody who said that he wouldn't do well in the Championship probably doesn't understand football. The guy knows how to play the game. He has got that world-class quality about him. So he was always going to come in and do something, but it was always going to be to what extent he could do. And to be fair, he started off like an absolute train. Obviously, I think he's on 6 goals this season, 7 goals, 5 assists, something like that. So, if you'd have signed a 22-year-old, from a lower league and they'd done that, you'd be praising them to the hill. So, for what he has done, and obviously what he's done off the field as well, because obviously he did sign as a player coach, the way that he's been working with Derby's youngsters since January has obviously had an effect. We've seen since the restart I think personally he's struggling with his fitness. He does look that yard short, to be perfectly honest with you, and he hasn't been as influential in those games, which ultimately is probably the reason why we've missed out on the playoffs this season. But as Corey mentioned, I mean, to even be in the same conversation was a little bit of a surprise the way that it came around. Has he done what I expected? That's a difficult question because, as I say, I'm not really sure what I was expecting from him. I think anything other than just a regular signing coming in. If you just made a regular signing, give somebody a few games to settle in. Has he set the league alight? Possibly not, but as I say, don't really think I was expecting that, to be honest with you. But he certainly had an impact. I wouldn't necessarily say that the whole turnaround is because of him, but he obviously, you can't really question that he's obviously had a say in that. So I think we've been better with him.
Yeah.
Up until the last couple of games, as I say, you can just see he's tired. But then again, I think as a Derby fan, I could say that there's about 7 or 8 players, trying to play 3 games in 7 days with probably a core of 13, 14 players. It's going to take the toll at whatever age. So yeah, I think we've just burnt out ever so slightly, unfortunately. But to be honest with you, looking at the quality, as you say, from the results yesterday, just looking at that next step, if you will, from that 12 to 7, then to push into that top 6. We've not beaten a top 6 side all season. So I think to be fair, that's where we're about. I know we said, me and Corey on the podcast said, if Derby can get anywhere near the top half from where we were at Christmas, it would have been a pretty decent second half to the season, and seems to be that's pretty much where we're going to end up. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the impact Wayne Rooney's had. You guys have definitely been better in the second half of the season, without a doubt. And I think a player like Wayne Rooney, he is a top class player still. So I think, him coming into the side was always going to make an impact. Again, though, I wasn't sure what I was expecting from Wayne Rooney because, the last time he was in England, he was Manchester United's top goal scorer, England's top goal scorer. He went over to America, became a defensive midfielder, and gone to Derby and is a defensive midfielder. So, yeah, he has had an impact, but as you say, in this restart, 4 months off, I think a few teams have burnt themselves out a bit. But look, fortunately for us, Leeds United haven't. But Corey, from after last season when you lost in the playoff final, were you expecting similar to what Leeds have done this season? We're expecting Derby to be pushing for the automatics. Could you see this coming?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the loan signings that Derby had last season with Fikayo Tomori, Mason Mount, and Harry Wilson, they papered over a lot of the cracks. And I think in some respects, and it's to your question, Ed, I think a small part of me did expect to kick on. But, when you're going to lose 3 higher end Premier League quality talents, I mean, they're all starting in the Premier League for their respective teams. They're all doing well, except, Tomori's been out of favor the last recent weeks. But I think Derby would do a poor season in terms of the massive managerial changes that have gone on. Basically, this is the first time since Nigel Clough was at Derby that will end and start a season with the same manager, unless something catastrophic happens. You lose 15-0 to Leeds. Kaku's gone overnight, but and I think the loan signings last season papered over a lot of cracks because if you look, we got to the playoff. They got to the playoff final, played Aston Villa, had the 3 Premier League quality signings, international quality signings, still couldn't get up. So I think that shows a dearth of quality in other areas of the field. I don't think they were necessarily addressed in the window because Jason will correct me if I'm wrong. I think a lot of the targets that they were targeting in summer, a lot of that oxygen got sucked up because Wayne Rooney's available, and they just pivoted and then those other targets left. So I think Derby would do a poor season. I think I expected them to kind of be around where they are right now. At least in the off season, when I was thinking about the season, I was hopeful, another playoff run. Who doesn't like the playoffs, right? Well, we don't. We're always there. But it's not a surprise to see where Derby are. And I think, again, we talked about this on the podcast, that the season is an average of where teams are. Derby is a mid-table championship team, and that's where we will finish.
Yeah. But there must be a sense of disappointment, really, to see that Leeds, the team you beat in the playoff semi-final last season, going up as champions, and then Derby, mid-table team. There must be a sense of disappointment there.
Yeah, I think Jason and myself, we try to do a little differently when we're on the pod and we look at football, because first and foremost, we're football fans. We're not necessarily, we love the game of football, and then we love Derby County. And we try not to look at the club in a vacuum, just under, just Derby County stuff, because it's very easy to get whipped up with, oh, the under 18s won, this guy's going to, and you got to look at the bigger picture, right? And I don't think either of us could argue, and I don't think either of us would say that, when the season kicked off, Leeds were the best team. I think we would hold our hands up and say Leeds were the best team. I think Leeds were probably unlucky last season. Derby got very fortunate. It was like, I said this yesterday, it was like one of those Liverpool-Barcelona moments where you're not going to see that kind of game in a playoff again, probably for the rest of my life. It was incredible. Yeah. And so Leeds were very unfortunate, to be honest. I mean, the evening was great. Don't get me wrong. And it set all this kind of stuff in motion, but Leeds have been the best side in the championship this year, the way they've come out. I mean, it's very easy. You've seen it with Derby. You've seen it with teams before. They have a playoff hangover. They lose a couple players. Bielsa stayed. They didn't really lose anybody. Obviously, they got rid of Campbell Roof and Pontus Janssen for whatever reason. But Leeds have been the best team, and I wouldn't say Leeds are my favorite team, Ed, to be honest with you, mate.
I mean, after last season, Derby aren't my favourite team either.
Yeah, but I think
the most horrendous night ever for me.
I think as a football fan and even as a Derby fan, I think if a Derby fan says, "Oh, Leeds don't deserve to go up," then they don't know football.
Yeah, Jason, do you share the same views on Leeds United?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I mean, just going back one point, last season as a whole was an absolute whirlwind for Derby. Frank Lampard coming in to manage your team, and I say bringing in those three stellar signings. Really, I mean, don't get me wrong, they were nobodies when they came to Derby, but obviously Lampard had seen two of them in the academy and knew that they could bring something. And obviously Harry Wilson, I think, was a tip off from Gerrard. So, they brought them in, and then you turn it to this season, they replaced them with Matt Clark, Kieran Dowell, and Jamie Patterson, who are they're not in the same league. I mean, don't get me wrong, Matt Clark for Derby this season has been pretty solid. But obviously Kieran Dowell and Jamie Patterson both went back in January without really getting a sniff in the side. So, when you take that quality away, and like Corey said, we were papering over the cracks a little bit when Lampard came in, made 9 signings. And only really 3 or 4 of them actually probably settled and became first team players. Coupled that with this season, obviously him leaving, Cocker coming in late, as Corey said. We had Jack Marriott on fire last season for a good 4 months. He can't even get in the side at the minute because he's got a niggly injury. I mean, he may well be that he actually starts today from his second game back since his operation that he had to have. But it came out 2 weeks ago that he's gone through the entire season needing an operation that for whatever reason wasn't done earlier on in the year. I really don't know why. So we've you take out that 3 players, you take out the goal scoring threat of Marriott, you're a completely different side. And then again, obviously, then to add the changes in management, change in style, which it has been, it's one of them things. But as I say, Leeds, yeah, they have been the best team this season. I said it yesterday on Alfie when we recorded with Alfie that them for me, Brentford are the best 2 teams that I've seen this season. I mean, earlier on, obviously, this season at Ellen Road, we took a point, but we weren't even in the game. And this season, Brentford, both games have blew us away. There's not actually been many teams that have blown us away in both fixtures, to be honest with you. But who knows what's going to obviously happen at 2 o'clock this afternoon. But yeah, and anybody that says Leeds haven't deserved it this season, they are lying. They don't understand. They don't understand. And as Corey mentioned there, you had a great platform last season. Freak result in the playoffs. It wasn't even the playoffs. It was the second half of the second leg of the playoff. It was a freak 30 minutes that unfortunately, obviously for Leeds, defined the season. But as Corey said, you didn't really lose a great deal of talent. You've brought in wisely as well. It was always going to go that way. And obviously with Derby, as I say, and like Corey said, there's always an off chance. We've been in and around that playoff mix for the last 5 or 6 years. We're in all fairness, if you go from the first season, say 13-14, when obviously we made it to Wembley and lost to QPR, you look at that team today, I think there's only 2 people left, I think, from that squad. Yeah. So we have completely, reshuffled the pack as such, but we've always been in and around that playoffs. But I think we've never quite taken that next step because we haven't got the familiarity. There's always something changing, if it be managers, style of play, players. There's never been that core gone from one season to the next. And we're hoping, as Corey said, unless something strange happens in the summer, Koku should be with Derby for next season. And obviously we expected it to be a very short turnaround as well. It can only bode well for Derby next season. But yeah, I mean, you have to look at this season as a work in progress. You can pick it apart in 2 or 3 different ways, really. You could say that Derby failed. At the end of the day, as Corey said, 3 games to go. We should have done it. Irrespective of who we were playing, we got that close. And now, in all fairness, 2 games later, we look nowhere near it. And just the nature of the results, nature of the championship. Yeah. If Derby have made it to the top, if Derby had made it into the playoffs, would you have taken it? Of course you would. Were Derby ready? No. Derby weren't ready to go up last year, and they managed to get themselves in it. If we had have gone up, if we had have beaten Villa in the final, would we have kept the 4 players that we'd got on loan? No, probably not. Would Frank Lampard have stayed? No, probably not. So you'd have been going into a higher division with more problems.
Yeah.
So, I'd have to say that even this season, Derby weren't ready. Especially we've blooded a lot of youth this season. They'd be lost in the Premier League, and that's no disrespect. They need some decent football under the belts, and the pressures of the Premier League just probably wouldn't help them in that scenario. So, for a fan to sit here and say they don't want the team to get promoted is probably a strange one, but in all honesty, from going, most weeks, I season ticket at home, go to away games when I can get to them. This Derby side is not ready to be competing at the top end of the championship. It's not. It is pretty much, in all fairness, if they finish 12th, as I say, which it looks like they're going to do, I think that's about where they are. You look at the teams above, we've not taken too many points off the teams above us, but we've got better results against the teams below us. So I think it puts you, a surefire in the middle of the pack, really.
Yeah. So for next season, then, what do Derby need to do to, go that extra step and get in the top 6 and win that promotion? What do you think Derby need to do?
Well, me and Corey discussed this yesterday. I mean, it's, for me, a season without off the field influences would be great. Never a dull day being a Derby fan.
Yeah, I mean, the all the controversies around this season must not have helped.
It can't help, and to be fair, I think one of the things why Derby fans have took a bit more of a shine to Koku than when first come in, because I'll tell you now, Ed, when we started playing under him, it was boring. It was boring football,
and he was boring in his interviews, so it was completely different than Lampard. He was very effervescent in personality. Koku's just kind of like, yeah, this is good,
Yeah, it was very difficult to engage as a fan.
Yeah.
With everything that he's gone through, and he's come out the other side, and we're doing okay. Thumbs up to him, and I think that's probably the right step to go and move on, to next season. But next season for me, I think there's three key areas that Derby have got to make sure that they sort out. They've got to sort out a goalkeeper. because we've got two number twos, and that's what they are. No disrespect to them, but they're not top of the championship challenging goalkeepers for me. So that for me, it's pretty much the spine of the team, really. Obviously, we've got Matt Clark at the back, who's on loan from Brighton. We're going to try and get him back next season, but who knows what's going to happen there. We have got a central defender coming in on somebody that's already agreed that Koku's plucked out from Holland. So that should hopefully bolster the centre-half position, which has been a position of weakness this season. We've got Christian Bielik, who's been out for 9 months with an ACL injury. I think he's back in training now, running and that kind of thing. So he won't be too far away. He can operate at centre-half or defensive midfield, dependent on where. But with Rooney taking up one of those slots, obviously he kind of came in at the right time once Bielik got his injury. So I would expect him to be challenging for a centre-half place. So centre-half could probably needed something, and I think it's got something. Maybe one more in there. And then our wide play. We haven't got out-and-out wingers, and we're screaming for them. We really are. The way that the Dutch system is, we're screaming for out-and-out wingers. We're playing centre midfielders out wide, 18, 19-year-olds as well. That, I mean, they've got a future in the game, don't get me wrong. For the here and now, are they good enough to keep Derby in a promotion push consistently week in, week out? Possibly not. I think they need to bring in a little bit of championship know-how, or somebody from abroad who can play that wing position. And then at the moment, as I say, Jack Marriott's been out all season pretty much. I think he's mustered a handful of games, mainly off the bench. I think he's only probably started 3 or 4. He's not looked fit. He's looked disinterested, in all fairness. But as I say, it then comes out that he's been struggling with this injury. We've got obviously Chris Martin, who scored the goal at Ellen Road, whose contract's up in the summer. No, I know we're in the summer, but his contract's up at the end of the season, and it looks a bit touch and go. I think both sides want a deal to be done, but it's going to come down to finances, because obviously Derby's thrown a lot of money at it over the last couple of years, and they just can't afford to maintain that. And Chris Martin would be one of the bigger earners. So, dependent on if he stays or goes, there is talk that Jack Marriott, is he in the shop window, in the transfer window? We don't know. So it could well be that our recognised striker up front is an 18-year-old, which is not going to be good enough. It's not going to be good enough for next season. Yeah. So we're going to have to bring somebody in up there as well. But as we've said before, Corey, trying to fight the way that we play, we want a target man up front, and trying to bring in a target man that can do what a target man can do and score goals on a free transfer, which is probably what we're looking at, in all fairness, it is going to be difficult. So they're definitely the areas that they need to strengthen. And again, coaching with the youth, and another season for the youth, see where they are, really. I'm optimistic. I think any team with, let's say, 5 or 6 academy graduates in it, you can be optimistic. Sprinkle that little bit of quality around it, and who knows what Derby can achieve next season. But it's an age-old thing in football. You can't rely on kids too much, and it seems to be that the chairman at Derby is trying to push that more potentially than. And I think that's one of the reasons. And Corey, you'll probably agree with me. It's probably one of the reasons why Morris tried to get Koku in, because of his pedigree with youth over in Holland, bringing the likes of Martial through, and that kind of thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think we've got a Martial in our academy, but just his track record with the youth and turning them into regular players for the first team, I think that's probably the reason and that was the remit for him when he came in, to be honest. So, and those 3-4 probably positions that I've just mentioned, they're probably the areas that we haven't got an academy graduate coming in, being on the bench and things like that. So for me, that'd be the shopping list. How many of those we can actually actively get in, I don't know. But if those positions aren't addressed, I can't see Derby challenging for the playoffs next season, because it's just going to be another season of same old. We know where the problems are in the team, and obviously if you can't bring that in the window to rectify that, other than a miracle, all of a sudden players start performing in that area, then it's going to be another one of those seasons. So I think that's I think that's the key. We need a goal scorer. It's the two halves of football, really. We need somebody to put it into the net on a more regular basis, and we need somebody to keep it out at the other end.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest with you.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the wing play there. As an outsider looking in, I was watching the Brentford game where you guys were playing against Brentford the other week, hoping for a helping hand there. But yeah, I was definitely thinking, if Derby had a fast-paced winger, which they really need. I mean, Joseph Soon, I don't know why he wasn't playing. Yeah, definitely you need some pace in that side as an outsider looking in. Corey, we've already got a fan of you on a YouTube gauge here saying 6 a.m. That's commitment, Corey. Well played. Yeah, very, very well played. So yeah, Corey, for you, where did Derby need to improve to not have mid-table mediocrity for the next few seasons?
Yeah, it's basically just ditto what Jason said. I mean, both of our goalkeepers, one's on loan, one's been here for a while. Keller Roos, played well last year, just posed. Scott Carson didn't catch a ball in the playoff final, and that's why we're here 12 months later. Yeah, definitely goalkeeper is a situation that they need to improve. I know the club's been linked with Joe Hart, but Joe Hart's also been linked with Leeds and pretty much everybody else in and around higher end Championship, lower end Premier League, and that's definitely one position. And I think, Jason talked about the center halves, but you just touched on it there. The winger, I think, is the most crucial thing for me, other than a goalkeeper. If they came to me and I was the manager and they said, Corey, you can only sign two players, who are you targeting? And you know, we've got 4 or 5, 6, 7 gaps that we need to fill. Obviously, bench quality is something else that Derby need. Not necessarily just a starter. It's just when you look at the first 11 or 12 that Derby play with, the drop off from the level to the level on the bench is just significant. It's like when you look at Liverpool, the drop off on the bench is significant, but when you look at City, they're basically at the same level. And so that's what really, can really dictate teams, especially in a punishing championship season. But yeah, I think the forwards that we have are suited for the championship. Obviously, Chris Martin has scored goals his entire career in the championship. Jason and myself are big fans of him. Hopefully he stays, but to be honest, he's looked rather poor the last few games. So, and then Jack Marriott, he had a good 4 or 5 months last season, not really hit the heights of this season. So, we don't know what his future holds. And I think if we were to get in a winger, that's probably the other position other than goalkeeper, because if you get a bit of pace in the side, which you're right, Ed, there's no pace in the Derby side at all. I mean, basically we played West Brom a couple of weeks ago, and West Brom were walking, and they just murdered us, and they were walking pace. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like Pereira's just strutting around like he's on a Sunday stroll. And I was like, Jesus, man. But if we could get some wingers that can create some things, I think the strikers could flourish, because I think Chris Martin, they play it into him. They kind of call him the wardrobe, right? So they play it in off him. He's got really good feet. He's got a bit of good, decent skill for a man his size. And then Jack Marriott, obviously, as well. But they're not creators. They're not creators as a forward. They're more of like, you put it on a plate in and around the 18-yard box, it's going to go in the back of the net. But we can't get it in there in those positions for them to create. So I think a winger with some pace that can and a bit of flair, I think, is needed as well. Obviously, we've got Tom Lawrence, but sometimes he's a bit inconsistent. So the other side, just basically one winger. Lawrence could be okay in the championship, if we can get a full season out of him. Someone who can create, someone with a bit of pace, someone that can take somebody on in a box, create something, some unpredictability. I mean, you look at Saeed Benrahma, you don't know what you're going to get. You look at a Leeds player I love. I know obviously he doesn't always play as a winger. He plays a bit as a fullback, but Alioski. The lad's on the subs bench thinking about, he's like a Luis Suarez. He's always thinking about goals. He's like scheming, and he's like, how can I get a goal? And it's a water break, and he's like on the subs bench, and he's like, how can I trip this guy or whatever, somebody with a bit of flair, somebody with a bit of inventiveness in the side, kind of like those players. Obviously they have their off days, these creative players, where they're just, Benrahma was off yesterday for Brentford, but something like that is just something Derby is just crying out for. And you mentioned Flores Josefsson, he came, Lampard signed him from Brentford, where he was well thought of. And yeah, we would love to see the best out of Flores Josefsson. He was under Philip Cocu at PSV. But he's just not been able to do anything really in a Derby shirt. It's a bit disappointing. And
yeah,
I don't know, his just confidence is completely shot. And we were hoping that he was playing well in a couple of the closed doors friendlies. And we thought, without fans there, he might turn it on, because when you listen to the player interviews, they consistently name him as the most skillful player that we have at the club. But yet he gets on the field and he just looks lost. And I feel a bit sorry for him, really, because I don't want any player, basically. I mean, it's their job, just like me, you, and Jason have jobs, I don't want anybody to go do their job and just be completely lost at it. That must be awful for the confidence. But, I'd like to see him start against Leeds. Do I think he will? Probably not. We probably only come on if we were really desperate, which we were against Brentford. But yeah, I don't know. He just looks a bit lost, which is a bit odd, to be honest, because we know that there's a player in there. We've seen highlights of him and the players talk highly of him, but he gets on the field and it's like, why? Okay, this is how you play. Okay,
Yeah, it is a bit strange to see how Joseph Soon's career at Derby has gone, because before he joined Derby, Leeds were linked with him, and I definitely would have taken him. He was a cracking player, but yeah, it just hasn't worked out at Derby really for him, and it is a bit strange to see.
Well, call up Marcelo Bielsa and have him make a bid.
Looking at Leeds United then, so you guys were very complimentary of Leeds United earlier, but yesterday, I don't know if you saw, Jason, but on a 5 Live yesterday, a Derby County fan hung up, and he wasn't very fond of Leeds United, saying that there shouldn't be a guard of honour, that Leeds are the most dishonourable club there is. I mean, Jason, I hope that you don't share these thoughts of Leeds United with the Derby County fan who phoned up 5 Live.
Yes, no, yes and no, yes and no. I mean, obviously, the history between, I think, Derby and Leeds comes from obviously the 70s, where I wasn't even a thought process. So you go through the club's history, and don't get me wrong, yes, it is well documented that Leeds United as a football club, there are plenty of teams that don't particularly like Leeds, but that's because of the way that they used to be. I don't think it's so much of a as a thing nowadays, but just the way. But to me, at the end of the day, Leeds played that way, and it got them results. It's one of those things. So there will always be. I mean, I'm a passionate Derby fan. As I say, go every week near enough. But so. Is there a case of, I suppose, sometimes jumping on the bandwagon? Yeah, probably. Do I think about Leeds other than when we're playing Leeds? Not really. For that 90 minutes when we play Leeds, certainly if I'm at the ground, do I hurl abuse? Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, but you do it every game. Do I hate them as much as Nottingham Forest? No, I don't. So it's one of those. I did hear the interview. That there will be, I can assure you, Ed, there will be plenty of Derby fans that would think the same thing. Me and Corey had a bit of a joke about this yesterday. I would, if this game was played behind, with fans in the stadium, I would have thought there'd be quite a lot of Derby fans who wouldn't want to turn up to this game today, just to see Leeds celebrate. To be perfectly honest with you, but I mean. You could say it's a bout of jealousy in some respects, because that's where we all aspire to be. Obviously, things that happened last season between Leeds and Derby, did that stoke the fire with it a little bit? Because obviously it had been a bit stagnant between Derby and Leeds, really, over for a few years. Yes, I think last season did stoke it back a little bit. And I think the fact that Derby won in the playoff semi-final stoked it even that little bit more. I think if Leeds had gone on to beat us, then I don't think Derby fans could have sat here and really said anything other than Bielsa's a bit of a tactical masterclass, in all fairness, And I will still say, whatever went on last season, it is what it is. I think it got blown out of proportion. But there will be, and there is, certain hatred towards Leeds from Derby perspective, but I do think it's more the older generation who can remember the Leeds of the late 70s and the 80s and things like that. I think that's probably where it stems from more than anything. Well, if I was there tomorrow, would I give Oh, I know this question's been asked. Would I be happy to see the Derby players give them a guard of honour or anything like that? I don't know. Is my honest answer. I don't know. As a fan, would I like to see that? If it was at Ellen Road, possibly. If it was at Pride Park, of it, which it is, of course, is a little bit more of a bitter pill to swallow, to be perfectly honest with you. But I mean, one thing I will say is, as I said earlier, you can't deny how well Leeds have played this season. It doesn't matter. And Koku has come out from an interview and said he will show the respect to if they was to come into this game. Obviously, this was earlier on in the week when he said this. If Leeds were to come to Pride Park on Sunday already promoted or whatever, then he will make sure that respect is shown.
Yeah,
because I think it's deserved.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a lot of the hatred has, sprung on from last season, with Spygate. We didn't break any rules, but I know that it annoyed the club and the fans a lot. Obviously, last season in the playoffs, the Derby players and fans that were doing the spy goggles. There were, I think that whole that whole situation really sparked a lot of the hatred. And with Leeds fans hating Derby, it's simply because of that that playoff semi-final last season where we lost. It was just such heartbreak. I think if it was on the shoe was on the other foot, you guys would want a guard of honor, but I wouldn't want to give you a guard of honor simply because of last season, really. But Corey, in your opinion, do Leeds United deserve a guard of honor today?
Ed, you really put me on the spot, mate. I thought we were buddies. I think, and I don't want to upset anybody, but I'm trying to look at it objectively, not as a Derby fan, but as a football fan. I think if I don't know what the precedent is in the championship for a guard of honor, to be honest with you. I know that the Rams TV folks who are hosting the game from the Derby perspective have looked it up, and I think there is some sort of precedent for it, I think. And I would believe that if there is a precedent for it, Derby will do it, because Koku, if anything, is a very classy, gentlemanly man. And I think I would like to hope the club's a little bit classy as well. From time to time, we skirt the boundaries of that. But the only point I'll make is that Leeds are and this is no disrespect at all, but when you look at the league table and let's say the season finished today, Leeds are the 21st best team in the country. So does the 21st best team in the country get a guard of honor? No, I know you've won the division, but you know what I mean? If you look at it as a whole, if you look at it as a whole, obviously Liverpool get it. They are champions of England. So that's a different level entirely. They deserve that. So I don't know what the precedent is. But look, at the end of the day, Jason will tell you, Derby fans tend to get wound up sometimes about things that are a bit minuscule. And look, the guard of honor is going to last maybe 30 seconds. So in my opinion, if there is a precedent for, and I wouldn't say go out of your way to be rude to Leeds, because they deserve the respect of the champions of the league, right? But look, just go and do it. Clap them on the field. It's 30 seconds. Eat some humble pie and sit there. And you see it a lot in American sports where, and like in the playoff final, you want the players to sit at Wembley. You want them to see the opposing team lift the trophy, because you may want to make sure that your players feel a certain way so that they ensure that they know that they never want to feel that way again. And if eating that humble pie and feeling stupid for 30 seconds to clap Leeds onto the field, just do it. And then take that inside. And then in 4 weeks' time, when the preseason starts, say, you know what, next year, I don't want to be doing that. Next year, we're going to go romp the league. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's not like we've got to give Leeds a guard of honor for the entire game. Every time they go out, we're applauding them. They just walk onto the field. So just do it for 30 seconds and get it done. But that's the end of the day. And again, Leeds are the best team and they deserve that respect. But when you look at the football pyramid, they are what they are. They're not, you know what I mean? You're Premier League, but not for another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But you know where I'm getting at, Ed. Yeah.
I completely understand. But as you say, it's 30 seconds. If they have to do a guard of honor because we're the champions, I've never really, noticed it in the championship. Really,
it would be really weird that people even talking about. Like, you do that in the championship? Because think about it, if it's League Two and it's Boston United versus whoever,
exactly.
You'd be like, this is stupid. This is League Two. Like, no disrespect. Or if it was the National League or whatever, you'd be like, what the hell's going on here? But I've never heard of it before. But hey, if they do it, they do it.
Yeah, so I don't know what the protocol is, but if they have to do it, then just do it. As you say, humble pie. And, I'd love to see it because, last season you guys gave it to us after beating us in the playoff semi-final. I think, you just got to take it this season, really. But, it'll be interesting to see what happens if they do give a guard of honor. But I'm pretty sure that if there is no protocol in place, then Derby probably won't do it. But it certainly will be interesting. But Jason, as an outsider looking in for Leeds United, going up to the Premier League, what do Leeds United need to do and improve to stay up in the Premier League?
I think one of the things that we said with Alfie yesterday, from an outsider looking in, obviously a player that as a Derby fan know quite well, in Patrick Bamford. I think the forward line for me for Leeds it needs addressing. I don't think Bamford is that type of striker. I mean, don't get me wrong, he can score goals in the Premier League, but obviously he's been around the block a little bit in the Premier League, never really cut it. Obviously, you've got Hernandez, who, I mean, he's just a class act. But at 35, 36, is he going to be able to play every minute of every game next season? I know a lot of creativity comes from him. Obviously, I appreciate they're only a couple of decent Leeds players. Obviously, your back line's pretty solid. Is it Ben White who's on loan? Obviously, dependent on if you can get him, keep hold of him. But for me, that's kind of where I'd be looking for Leeds. I just think, obviously, any team that goes up, you need a goal scorer. And I think that's probably a focal point as such. I think that's probably the one, if anything, is lacking. I think you can kind of get away with it a little bit in the Championship. We've seen teams like Middlesbrough in the past go up, and they've not necessarily got an out-and-out 25 goal a season striker. So if everybody's chipping in 5-10, then it can soon add up in the Championship. In the Premier League, I don't think it's kind of quite the same. So I think obviously a striker for certain. I mean, other than that, to be perfectly honest with you, I think the Leeds United team's a pretty decent one, in all fairness. I can't really pick holes in it. To be perfectly honest with you, I
think the whole you have picked out of it, though. Attacking wise, striker and a number 10. Definitely, in my opinion, I think we need to do that. Bamford, whether they'll cut it in the Premier League, he'll be interesting. And Pablo Hernandez, he can't play a full half anymore, even in the Championship. So, the holes you've picked out there is definitely what I'd fill in. And then, of course, we need to keep below knees, Ben White and Jack Harrison and Mezzier. And then, I think we'll be fine. It's really interesting to hear an opposition fan realise, the same kind of weaknesses really in the Leeds United squad and where we need to improve. That's really interesting. But of course, this is a match preview for this afternoon's game. I think we need to talk about this afternoon's game. So, I mean, both, we're champions of the Championship. Derby can't get in the top 6. Nothing to play for both teams. It is essentially a dead rubber game. Corey, what are you expecting from today's game?
Well, I wouldn't expect a 0-0 draw, because Derby's pretty much incapable of keeping a clean sheet in terms of how we do it. And to be honest with you, I mean, basically both teams can lay their deck chairs out, right? So why play a turgid 0-0 game of football? I think Leeds, they're going to want to come after it. I don't think Bielsa's the type of man that's going to let the standards drop just because, we got to the finish line, now we can just, whatever, we don't have to worry about it. They're going to want to win the Championship in style. They're going to want to continue to grow and in the momentum for the next 2 games, going into a shorter off season into the preseason for the Premier League. And I think for Derby, there's been several poor performances in recent weeks. Jason and myself were talking on the podcast, maybe, what was it, Jason? Maybe 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And it just shows how quickly things can go in football, because we'd come out the lockdown, we'd won like 5 in a row. We would just play it well. And then we played Nottingham Forest, and the wheels kind of ground to a halt, and then they started to come off the bus, and now the bus is just skidding along to a cliff, And so
we're about over the cliff, aren't we?
just about, just about. Phillips keeping his fingers on the cliff to stop us from going over completely. Much. But Derby's put in a few turgid performances recently, and I don't think that's put mildly. Several players are out of form. Several players can't even pass to a white shirt. So hopefully Leeds will be wearing the darker colors, so that might help Derby this time, because they know what color Derby's in. And obviously, we've talked about the holes that Derby have, and those holes are glaring. We've been talking about the goalkeeping mistakes since this time last year, and it's not been addressed. We've been talking about their inability to stop crosses. I've been talking about it for about 4 years now, and they still can't stop a cross. We've got no presence in the middle to head a thing, and that's not slating the players. I'm just stating how I see it as a fan. It's not slighting individual mistakes, which I'm sure you've read. We've Derby fans have been critical of some of the players probably to the excessive recently, but I wouldn't expect a 0-0. I would expect probably a 2-1 Leeds win, something like that. I do think Leeds are the better team. I think the players, there's very little motivation needed. I think it humbled Bielsa last season with everything that went on, especially with the playoffs. I think the players, every time they play Derby, they seem to up at a different level because of what went on last season and in the past. So I would expect them to come out the blocks flying. I know some of them have been on complete benders for about 24, 36, 48 hours. So how many of them are not? But sometimes we play like we're drunk. So it might actually equal things out. But I think a 2-1 Leeds win would be decent. I would expect Derby to basically play a similar team. I think a few of the squad players and a few of the players that might be on the block would maybe play. I think Jason mentioned it. Jack Marriott might start to give him a run out, and then obviously against Birmingham, completely different situation. We'd play a completely different team with kids and everything like that. But we played against West Brom we finished with what, nine youth players on the field, Jason.
Yep.
And if we do that against Leeds, we're going to get absolutely murdered, absolutely murdered. So we can't afford to do it. So I would expect some of the senior rotation players to come in because again, it's a nothing game and to try to get them some games to see who wants to stick around for next season. So 2-1 Leeds win.
Nice. I like that. I hope that Leeds United will win. I mean, you look at it, we're champions, Derby are mid-table. Leeds United should win really, but as you hinted today, we've been partying all weekend. So whether the players are up for it and will play a solid game, that'll be interesting to see. In my opinion, I'd love to see some kids thrown in, and Jason, you were hinting at it, breeding in for youngsters. I'm pretty sure we'd all like to see a few youngsters be given a chance, but I think after last season, both teams are going to go for it. We want our revenge from last season, certainly. And yeah, I hope we do get our revenge. So yeah, Corey, you're going 2-1. Jason, what's your score prediction for today's game?
To be fair, pretty much what Corey's just said and what you've just said. I mean, I wouldn't expect a 0-0 because Derby can't keep clean sheets. We've got a pretty decent record at home, even after lockdown. We've not won every home game, but we've certainly scored goals. So I can see a goal in us. Like you say, from a Leeds perspective, depends where the heads are at. But I mean, at the end of the day, you winning the league this year, irrespective of what went off last year, you coming to Derby County now as champions is the biggest thing that you could possibly do to shut us up. And as Corey said, I don't think Bielsa's the type of man who will rest on his laurels and give them, a minute off, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a winning mentality. It's breeding a winning mentality. So I can't really see them doing that. And one thing that I would say from Derby's perspective, we could put, like Corey said, we could probably start with near enough 9 academy players. Cocu tried to do that earlier on this season in a cup game against Forest, and we got beat 3-0, and the fans nearly lynched him for it. So obviously, not as it's quite the same rivalry as it is with Forest, but Leeds Derby is still a pretty big rivalry. I think it would be absolute suicide for him to put nothing but the strongest 11 out that we can, which unfortunately is probably about 9 or 10 of the same players that have played every minute of near enough of every game since the restart. And we said 3 games ago that our players were looking tired. So it's one of those, really. I mean, if we are going to play the kids, we'll save it for Wednesday against Birmingham away. I think Derby have to go into it with a pretty full strength side, but I'm on the same opinion. I can't see Derby picking up a result. I would expect them to score, but I just don't think we're good enough to keep Leeds at bay for more than 1 goal. So yeah, I'm going 2-1 myself to Leeds as well.
And Jason, don't forget we've got Martin Waghorn back today as well. Just remembered that he's been out for a while because we went through a stretch, Ed. I'm sure you're aware that we just had players getting red cards because they didn't want to keep playing. So all the suspensions are finally over. So maybe we should be able to field a senior 11. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But yeah, I mean, I would. Yeah, I just can't see it. I can't see Derby getting past. I said the same against when we played Brentford last week. I can recognise quality when I see it, and I can recognise a team that are better than us when I see it. And I was right against Brentford. I'm fully expecting to be right again today, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I very much respect the opinions there, because I think a lot more Derby fans would be very, very confident heading into heading into the game and thinking, oh yeah, we're going to battle Leeds, when realistically, I share the same opinion as you. I don't think Derby can beat us, and I think Bielsa, if he's going to play the kids, we'll save it to Wednesday. He respects the competition a lot, and yeah, as I say, after last season, we want to have events, so yeah, I reckon we'll beat you as well. Last season, we of course beat you twice at home, 1-0 and 4-1. I'll go 2-1 as well. 2-1 across the board here. I reckon. I think Leeds United will get the 3 points today, certainly. Just to brush over the comments then, the King Dreamer, LB on YouTube, says, not related to the topic, but Jason's wallpaper looks cool. It very, very does. I made that wallpaper. It looks awesome. Here we go. Byron, is there any date for trophy parade? I don't think a trophy is going to be lifted today. I think that'll be saved till Wednesday. Freddie Mac, if Leeds turn it on and utterly demolish Derby, should they hold off out of respect for the opponent? Yeah, I think he sent that comment when we were talking about the Guard of Honor. Yeah, I think if Leeds turn it on and utterly demolish Derby, I think it could definitely happen. Here we go. I'm calling today's game a 5-0 win to Leeds. I don't know if you guys can see that happening. I can't see it happening. I can't see it demolishing happening, but I can certainly see us beating you.
Yeah, I think Leeds are definitely have a more than a 50-50 chance of beating Derby, but I don't know. Leeds are a good side. I don't know, but very few teams, to be honest, Jason, wipe the floor with Derby, to be honest. I mean, we were competitive with Brentford for large swaths of the game. Goalkeeper mistake cost us, but yeah, not many teams come in and steamroll, unless we're playing away in London. We don't get steamrolled by very many.
Have we conceded more than 3 in a game this season? I appreciate even 3.
No, I don't think so.
But I don't think we have. But then again, we've not really handed out a thrashing to anybody either. So it's been a lot more down to our style of play, I think, more than anything. We're a bit more of a standoffish, patient possession kind of thing. And like Corey said, unfortunately, we seem to make those mistakes that quality opposition, just pick our pockets and put the ball into the back of the net. And that's what certainly the last 3 games have done. So yeah, I don't think any team has really, whilst we've had games where we've not looked like we could score in a month of Sundays, to be perfectly honest with you, we could be playing till next week and not score. We've not, whilst we've looked poor in defence, we've never looked like we were going to concede 4 or 5.
Yeah, we never looked like we're going to collapse.
No.
Which very hard team to beat.
We have done before.
Yeah, you're a very hard team to beat at Derby. So yeah, it certainly won't be easy for Leeds, but now we should be picking up the 3 points. In all respects, I think Leeds United should be winning, and you guys, as far as I'm aware, you guys agree the same. So yeah, 2-1 across the board here for a Leeds win. Really do appreciate you guys coming on, joining me, and very interesting to hear the perspective from opposition fans. So yeah, Corey, Jason, thank you for joining us. I really do appreciate it. Guys watching, if you want to get an insight into what Derby County fans think, and then make sure to go check out the Rams Review podcast. Where can they find it, guys?
Jason,
that's a question. Twitter is @RamsReview1. Facebook is the Rams Review podcast. Email ramsreview@hotmail.com. Try not to send too many "We Are Champions" emails. That'd be great. I have to spend my time sifting through them, but no. I'd say we released a pod with Alfie from the LS 11, so we had a good discussion about Leeds and Derby. So yeah, if any Leeds fans out there want to listen to that, then you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, definitely. I'll certainly be listening. All the links will be in the video description. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. And guys watching, thank you for joining. If you enjoyed, make sure to give it a like, share, subscribe, and all the rest of it. And we'll see you later.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.